Hello and welcome back to another of my YouTube videos, of course. I am going to be reading a very long book. It's called The Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. A last name I keep struggling with. But either way, this book is one of the longest books I've ever seen. I'm going to look, and it currently sits at 843 pages, this kind of printed version anyway. I've seen the online version equals nearly 1,000 pages. Either way, it's one of the longest books I've ever read. I've read some fantasy. There are some very long books I've read before, such as Angel's Sin by Daniel T. Jackson. But even though this is almost looking as thick, that's only 600 odd pages. There are some books, such as Shogun, which I actually have downstairs, which I think is around 1,000 pages. I have some Brandon Sanderson as well, which has been broken into two different parts because it's so long. I've got the two Way of the Kings books, and that's one book, but it's been separated into two books separately. So these are, let's have a look how long these are. So one is nearly 600 pages, part one is nearly 600 pages, and the second is nearly 600 pages. So you're looking at about 1,200 pages of book there. But I read that in two sections. I'm going to be reading Lonesome Dove in one. So what I'm going to be doing, something a bit different, something that I'm trying to do a bit more on this channel, is rather than me just standing here talking to you like I am right now, I'm going to be trying and actually recording a bit of me doing the reading bits. So what you'll see is me sitting time-lapse reading on the sofa, me maybe reading in bed, or me listening to the audiobook, because I'm going to need to audiobook this. The only problem with the audiobook is it's a very old version of the audiobook. It's not been remastered. It's not particularly clear. It's in quite a strong Texas accent. That kind of brings me on to what Lonesome Dove is about. Lonesome Dove is, I will read the back for you. Set in the 1880s, Lonesome Dove is the story of a cattle drive, an epic journey from the Rio Grande to the highlands of Montana that they will try men's souls as they attempt to carve out a new life in the last remaining wilderness. Augustus McCrae and W.F. Call are former Texas Rangers, retired and becalmed after long years of putting down the Comanches. I don't know what that is. Gus is the romantic, a reluctant ranger who fills his days with whiskey and the sound of his own voice, reminiscing about the old days. Call is devoted to hard work and silence, driven, demanding, and obsessed with the dream of creating his own empire. Larry McMurtry's intensely powerful novel brings alive, as never before, the most enduring of American myths, the frontier, recreating in a magnificent story of heroism, love, honor, loyalty, and betrayal. This was sent to me by somebody over on Bookstagram called Basie's Bookstagram. I think her name is Emily. Very kindly, she said it's one of her favourite books of all time. She really wants me to read it. I then put it online, and everybody that's responded about this, it's not the most popular, though one of the elements I want to make, one of the points I want to make even, is that I'm shocked at how many people have heard of this, considering I never heard of it. So the response I've had is, that's one of my favourite books of all time, from a surprising amount of people, and I'd never heard of it. It's amazing that you can get that with books. But anyway, I'm now going to shortly cut to me reading this over the next, God knows, 60 years or something it's going to take me to read this, but you're going to see cuts of me doing some reading, and then I'll try and cut in some bits about what I think about where I am at the moment with it as well. So, yeah. from the gym and I am determined to finish The Lonesome Dove today. So as you can see, I have been absolutely smashing the audiobook over the past 2 months. This is the gym is why I have a little weird fringe sticking out of my hat and I'm wearing a hat. Anyway, I would say, let's have a look. This is very difficult, one-handed. So I'm on page 812 and I need to get to page 842. So I have 30 pages left to try and finish today. I think I can do it. I'm going to try and get the audiobook in whilst I can. Sometimes I can listen to my audiobook whilst I'm just doing like menial tasks at work. Like sometimes I run an intranet and so sometimes it's just copy and pasting and moving things around as a like kind of one of my basic things I have to do sometimes. So I'm going to try and fit it in then. I'm also going to try and fit in, I've got a half an hour lunch break legally, so I'm going to try and stick it in then and see if I can get those 30 pages done. It's not going to be quick and easy because they're not small 30 pages either. According to my audiobook, which I've managed to ramp up. So when I first listened to it, I was listening to it at 1.75 times speed. Now I'm listening to it at 2.75 times speed. So it definitely proves that the more you listen to kind of an accent and the more you get used to the narrator, the quicker you can kind of speed it up. And I'm easily listening to it now. I remember when I started listening to it at 1.75, I thought even this is a bit strong, but it's because of the accents, because of the quality, these sort of things. Also, there was one particular character called Gus, who the narrator just seemed to shout every time his was using his voice. That was really unpleasant, especially he's like this long drawn out Texas accent, but we'll see. So I'm really hoping to get this finished today. If I do read any on my lunch break, I will obviously do a bit of recording and do a bit of a sped up recording of that, but I'm going to try now. So I've got to start work literally now, and then I'm going to try and, as I said, squeeze in some audiobook if I can whilst I'm doing some lesser tasks that don't require me to think as much, and then we'll see if I can get some physical reading in, and then I will be able to tell you what I think of Lonesome Dove. In short, started off uninterested, now absolutely obsessed. That's my summary, but I'll obviously tell you more about it at the end of this video. So I've just finished The Lonesome Dove. It was, I think, about 842 pages long in the end, so it was quite the epic. My thoughts in general, so it's taken me, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks to read this, and that's not necessarily because I've been reading it constantly and it's taken me that long. I've essentially stuck this as a back burner book. So what I mean by that is over the past kind of, it's probably even longer than that now, probably looking at about a month and a half, I've had this on audiobook. I've been listening to it every now and then, but I have also finished Strange Sally Diamond in the same time, and I started another book called The Rose Code, which inevitably you'll see as well. But what I've been doing is I've been listening to this on audiobook, as I said, in between those kind of sections, and once I finished Strange Sally Diamond, I focused on this as my main audiobook. Now, one thing that I noted when I first kind of read the audiobook was that the Texan accent that they had, that the narrator had, was quite strong, and that the quality of the audiobook was really poor. So what that means is essentially I ended up struggling with the audiobook. I think there were definitely moments when I was like, I don't know what he's just said. I had to keep it at a really low speed. Usually I can listen to audiobooks at 2 to 2.5 times speed, but I really had to stop it. I started it, I think, at 1.5 times speed, which is barely quicker than just speaking a normal accent. And as I said, because the quality wasn't great either, listening to it kind of in a car or listening to it out loud sometimes when I cooked or was just doing a quick activity where I didn't have my headphones near me, meant that I had to slow it down even further. However, these past kind of 150 pages, I managed to listen to at 2.75 times speed, and I quite slowly increased the speed of it. The reason it became easier to listen to was because I picked up the accent, was because the quality didn't affect me as much. I could hear them easier, I could hear the narrator easier, I could understand them, I could pick up their kind of syntax, and you get more comfortable with listening to it, which is something I'd always recommend with audiobooks, is just slowly increase them. Now, I know some people say, why do you want to listen to it as quickly as possible? And that's because I want to get through the story as quickly as possible. But it's not because I want to finish it, it's because I want to be able to get as much of it in as possible. That's just how my brain works. I like to do things as quickly as possible. I love driving, but I also like to get places in a good amount of time. I don't want to spend my whole time driving. I hope that makes sense. That's kind of how I am and why I wanted to speed this up. Now, that's why that's taken so long. And as I said, what I've been doing is I've been reading other books at the same time. This hasn't been my only read. I read, as I said, Strange Sally Diamond. I've got The Rose Code on the go. What I'm going to probably be doing is, now I've got The Rose Code as my only book, I'll probably be reading other books. So we'll see how they go. But what did I think of The Lonesome Dove? So The Lonesome Dove was utterly fantastic. I'll be honest, it started off very average. I wasn't the biggest fan when it started off. I really felt, even for half the book, which is like 400 pages, I thought this is just a generic kind of Texas story about a bunch of cowboys who are doing generic things. It wasn't until these kind of last 200 pages where the characters really started to show emotion, started to show bonds with each other, started to get upset about the actions that happened. Some of the big plot points and action points really started kicking off, that I really started to think, okay, no, this is up there with a fantastic book. Is it one of the best books I've ever read? No. Do I think it's ever going to be that for anybody else? I don't know. I know the person that sent this to me said it was one of their favourite books, if not their favourite book of all time. And I can see why. It's an epic. If you've only ever kind of read shorter novels and then you pick up something like this and you see it's got all of this detail in it, it's got this incredible amount of time for characters to develop, it's got this incredible amount of time for to be multiple stories, for there to be longer moments with the individuals, and for the plot to kind of expand, as it were. It's 100% understandable that this would then go on to be one of your favourite books of all time. But for me, it just wasn't. It is good. It is very good. Some of the writing is really interesting. At some points, I felt like I was reading a really good book, and then some points I felt like I was reading quite an amateur book, and it's a bit of a shame. So there's just instances where he would literally in 2 sentences say, "Gus, smell," and then in the second sentence would be, "Wow, you smell," said the character. And you think, well, that's not necessary, and a lot of it felt like fluff, and some of it was a bit lazy. But I guess the editor, at the end of the day, when you're reading God knows how many thousands of words this is, you're going to miss out on some of those things and think it doesn't matter to change those. So there was just a few things I noted with that, when it comes to the writing. In terms of the plot, there's a lot going on. The general story is that there's a group of people, a group of cowboys called August McCrae, W.F. Cool, and they've got Newt, and they've got some other characters in here as well who live in Lonesome Dove, and they decide that they want to take a journey elsewhere. They want to go elsewhere. There are other characters in here such as Lorena and Blue Duck, and some other characters in here as well as you meet along the way. There's quite a few, in fact, that you meet along the way, some of whom you don't meet until halfway through the book, and then you get almost a whole story about just them as well. It almost felt like Larry didn't necessarily have a big idea of where he wanted to go with this. I've just first named the author, by the way. The author is Larry McMurtry. But it felt like he maybe didn't necessarily have a great idea of where he wanted to go with this, but at the end of the day, he just kept writing about this kind of cowboy story and introducing new characters. And he does round it off well. And the ending does feel like an ending. Sometimes with these longer books, you get to the end and it just felt like, I don't know, they got bored of writing and they had a cut-off point. But not here. This generally did feel like a really, really good book and a really good ending. So the story is satisfactory. The characters are really interesting. Now, I said with my narration, one of the big problems with the narration was the quality and the strong Texas accent. And one of the characters he chose to put a strong even stronger kind of loud, obnoxious Texas accent on was the Augustus McCrae, who's sometimes referred to as Gus. Literally like, "Good day, man, how you doing?" And like, so all of his kind of sentences and everything that Gus said in the book kind of came out like that, and it was really obnoxious to listen to and really uncomfortable to listen to at times, and it almost made me not like Augustus. But unfortunately, even he is a great character. I think a lot of the characters in here are brilliant. I think Newt is kind of this sweet, innocent character. You've got, as I said, Augustus, who I would say is probably your main character. You've got, what's his name, W.F. Cool as well, the other main character, and they're all great. They've all got deeper personalities, and as I said, not until these last kind of 200-300 pages did I actually find out that there's more to them than them just being, I don't know, generic cowboys who go around talking about women, talking about killing Indians, all this sort of stuff. They then were like, okay, we want families, and I miss the love of my life, and this person has made me cry, and I'm upset about this thing. And once that started happening, I started thinking, okay, no, I love these characters now. I'm a big fan of what you're doing here. And that's when things started to get good for me. So I think that's pretty much all I can say about Lonesome Dove. As you'll have seen from my previous videos, this has taken me a while to read. It is an epic. Really, really interesting book. Now, would I recommend it over any other book? I don't know. It's very difficult. If you are a fan of cowboys, 1,000,000%, it's the ultimate cowboy novel. I think that's probably how I would say it. If you are a fan of long stories that don't necessarily cover vast amounts of time, but which cover a lot of plot, cover a lot of stories, are really character-driven, are really narrative-driven as well, then you'll enjoy this as well. And if you're somebody who just likes to sit down and read the same book for a long time, you'll also enjoy this. I don't want to rate this yet because I still need time to kind of think about it. I literally finished this like an hour ago. I was going to record some final footage of me kind of finish the last pages, but as I said in my previous kind of little section here, I said that I was going to listen to the audiobook whilst working, and then the audiobook just finished whilst I was reading. Interestingly, I was listening at 2.5 times speed, and there was some music that happened, and I think it was meant to be like doo-dum, doo-dum, but it was like doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. It's funny. Anyway, that's Lonesome Dove. Have you read it? Have you even heard of it? I'd not even heard of it before somebody sent it to me. I think it's brilliant. Is it one of my favourite novels of all time? No. Will I tell people it's good? Yes. Am I grateful that I got a chance to read it? 100%. That's the end of this video. If you've not had a chance yet, I would really appreciate if you could give this video a like or a subscribe. It's something a bit different. I've recorded different bits of footage here, that sort of thing. Something it's a bit more effort gone into this one, I suppose, than some of my other videos. So if, as I said, if you've not yet subscribed or liked or dropped a comment below, all of those kind of mini interactions help with these sort of things. But let me know what your thoughts, if you've read it on Lonesome Dove, were, or whether you're going to pick it up, or just what you're reading or anything like that. But until then, I will see you in the next video. Thank you and goodbye.